Hello, children! Danas govorimo o opisivanju događaja u prošlosti. I to uz pomoć 3 prošla vremena. The Past Perfect Tense, the Past Simple, and the Past Continuous. You will learn when do we use the Past Perfect Tense and its form. Then we will revise the Past Simple and Past Continuous tense, and we'll do some practice. For the end of the class, there is a quick review and your homework. Let's start. Look at these sentences. The train left at 8 o'clock. John arrived at 8:05. We have 2 past situations, both completed actions, but it is obvious that the train left earlier, before John arrived. So we could easily say the train left and then John arrived. But if we want to emphasize that the train left before John arrived, then we could say something like this. When John arrived, the train had already left. Now look at the timeline below. Now is present state, and everything that happened before now is in the past. And you can see that the train left is the action that happened further in the past. Look at these examples. 1. After I had finished my work, I watched TV. What happened first? Yes, that's right. I had finished my work. Or you could easily say, before I watched TV, I had finished my work. The meaning is the same. 2. As soon as I had eaten my breakfast, I went to school. What happened first here? Yes, I had eaten my breakfast. Okay? Or you could say, by the time I went to school, I had eaten my breakfast. The meaning is the same. Can you guess, when do we use the past perfect tense? We use the past perfect tense for an action which was completed before another action in the past. We use the past perfect tense for an action that happened first, and the past simple for the action which followed. For example, Ellie had done all her shopping by the time we met. Znači, kada koristimo pluskvamperfekt ili davno prošlo vreme? Za radnju koja se desila pre druge radnje u prošlosti. Past perfect tense znači koristimo za radnju koja se desila prva, a za radnju koja je usledila nakon nje koristimo past simple tense. For an action which was completed before a specific time in the past, for example, she had finished her project by 7 o'clock, znači za radnju koja se završila pre određenog vremena u prošlosti, kao u primjeru. We use the past perfect tense for an action that resulted another action in the past. For example, Kelly was sleepy because she hadn't slept well. Znači, pluskvamperfekt koristimo i za radnju koja je izazvala drugu radnju u prošlosti. She hadn't slept well the previous night, for example, and that's why she was sleepy. Now let's see, how do we make the past perfect tense form? We need the auxiliary verb had, which is the past tense of the verb have, and the past participle of the main verb. So, had plus past participle. What is the past participle? With regular verbs, it is the same as simple past, and we get it by adding ed to the verb. For example, help becomes helped, move becomes moved, travel becomes traveled. What about the irregular verbs? The irregular verbs have different forms for past participle. You have to learn these forms, and you can find them in a list of irregular verbs you usually have in your books or your workbooks, or you can look them up online or in dictionary. The examples are see, seen, go, gone, be, been, etc. The word order in positive sentence is subject plus had plus past participle. And the past perfect form is the same for all of the subjects. For example, I had finished, you had finished, she had finished, he had finished, it had finished, we had finished, they had finished. Negative sentence we get by adding not to the auxiliary verb. So the word order is subject plus had not plus past participle. I had not finished. She had not finished. Okay? And the short form of had not is hadn't. I hadn't finished. You hadn't finished. She hadn't finished. What about the questions? We do inversion of the auxiliary verb and the subject. Then we get had plus subject plus past participle. Had you finished? Had she finished? And the short answers would be yes, I had, or yes, she had. And negative, no, I hadn't, no, she hadn't. When you have the question word, for example, when, then the question word comes first, before everything. When had you finished? What had you finished? Etc. Let's see the words and time expressions that go with the past perfect tense. 1. Before I got home, my mother had already cooked the dinner. 2. When Linda arrived at the post office, it hadn't opened yet. 3. She didn't want to move. She had lived in London all her life. 4. He didn't offer us a drink until we had finished eating. 5. Before he moved to Paris, he had never seen the Eiffel Tower. 6. Had you ever seen the Eiffel Tower before you moved to Paris? 7. After I had done my homework, I went to school. So, the words and time expressions that usually go with the past perfect tense are already, yet, all her life, until, ever, never, after, etc. Let's do some practice. Put the verbs in brackets into the past perfect tense. I'll give you some time to think of the past perfect form. Let's check your answers. 1. After Emily had prepared dinner, she had a shower. 2. The waiter served something that we hadn't ordered. 3. When Jane moved to the US, she had already known English. 4. Before my parents returned from work, I had tidied up the house. 5. Had you ever visited the UK before your trip in 2006? 6. By the time I arrived at the party, Tom had left. Now, let's repeat. When do we use the past simple? We use the past simple tense for actions that started and completed at a specific time in the past. Znači za radnje koje su se desile u određeno vreme u prošlosti. For example, we bought a dog last month. For habitual or repeated actions in the past, za uobičajene radnje koje su se ponavljale u prošlosti, for example, we often went to the pub after work. For completed actions that happened one after the other in the story to tell us what happened next, znači za radnje koje su se desile jedna za drugom, recimo u pričama. For example, he opened the door, got in quietly and turned on the lights. And for permanent situations in the past, i za trajne situacije u prošlosti. For example, they lived in London for 20 years. Do you remember how do we form the past simple tense? With regular verbs, we add ed to the verb. For example, visit becomes visited. Help becomes helped. Travel becomes traveled. With irregular verbs, there are different forms in the second column of a list of irregular verbs. For example, meet, met, go, went, have, had, etc. He worked until late. This is an example of regular verb. I saw him in the street. This is an example of past simple form of an irregular verb. How do we get negative sentence? We need did plus not plus bare infinitive. And the short form of did not is didn't. He didn't work. I didn't see. And the question, did plus subject plus bare infinitive. Did he work? Did you see? And the short answers would be, yes, he did. No, he didn't. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. When there is a question word, then the question word comes first. Why did he work? Why did you see? Words and time expressions that go with the past simple tense are finished. For example, 1. John got up at 7 o'clock this morning. 2. Toby slept for 8 hours last night. 3. My parents were busy yesterday. 4. We had a nice time in Egypt last summer. 5. My father was born in 1971. 6. The plane arrived 5 minutes ago. So, the words and time expressions are this morning, last night, or last summer, last week, last Monday, yesterday, yesterday morning, yesterday afternoon, in 1971 or any other year, 5 minutes ago, 3 weeks ago, 2 years ago, etc. When do we use the past continuous tense? We use the past continuous for actions in progress at a certain point in the past. Trajno prošlo vreme koristimo za radnju koja je trajala oko određenog trenutka u prošlosti. For example, yesterday at 7 p.m. I was doing my homework. For action that was continuing when it was interrupted by a sudden event or action. Znači, sa past simple tensom koristimo da izrazimo radnju koja je trajala kada je prekinula neka druga radnja koju izražavamo past simple tensom. For example, I was washing my hair when somebody knocked at the door. And for two or more actions in progress at the same time. I za dve ili više radnji koje su trajale u isto vreme. For example, Jane was watching TV while her sister was playing. The past continuous is formed of was or were and ing verb form. I was playing. You were playing. Negative sentence, wasn't or weren't, and again ing verb form, he wasn't playing. We weren't playing. For questions, we simply do inversion of subject and was and were. Was she playing? Were they playing? And the short answers would be yes, she was. No, she wasn't. Yes, they were. No, they weren't. And if there is a question word, then the question word comes to the first place. What was she playing? Let's see the time expressions that go with the past continuous. 1. I was walking home when it started to rain. 2. I was studying while my brother was watching TV. 3. While I was driving to work yesterday. 4. They were always fighting. 5. Last night at 6 p.m. I was eating dinner. 6. In August, she was working at a summer camp. 7. Yesterday at noon, I was speaking to my friend. So, the past continuous time expressions are while, like in the second sentence, for two actions in progress happening at the same time, or like in the third sentence, when is the past continuous tense used for a background of a story, for example. Always, last night at 6 p.m., in August, yesterday at noon, or any other specific time. Now pay attention to the first sentence. The past continuous is used for progressive action, which is interrupted by a simple past action. Let's compare the past simple and past continuous. Andy told us his story about the day he spent outside. He used the past simple and continuous tense. Samo da vas podsjetim da past simple tense koristimo kod nabrajanja onoga što se desilo. I to je najvažnije vreme kod pričanja priča. Past continuous je također završena radnja u prošlosti, ali kod koje je akcenat na trajanju. Tu je radnja trajala neko vreme. Okay, I'll give you some time to go through Andy's story. Let's check your answers. 1. When I got up yesterday, the sun was shining. Andy told us he got up, that is finished action, but something was going on outside. The sun was shining, so that is the action in progress. 2. It was a beautiful morning, so I decided to cycle around a little. 3. I went to the shed and took out my bike. Was, decided, went, took. They are all simple past actions, happened one after the other. 4. While I was cycling past some villages, some people were working in their gardens. We have while, which implies that there are two actions happening at the same time. I was cycling, people were working, okay, and they are continuing actions. 5. After 1 hour, a big rain cloud suddenly appeared and it started to rain. 6. Luckily, a farmer noticed me and told me to come in. Appeared, started, noticed, told. They are all simple past actions happened one after the other. He tells us his story. 7. While it was raining outside, I was sitting in the farmer's house. Again, we have two actions in progress happening at the same time. We have while again. It was raining. I was doing what? I was sitting. 8. After a while, the sun came out again. Simple past action completed. And although they are not in the same sentence, we could understand this like the sun came out and somehow interrupted the previous action, interrupted the rain. The sun came out and the rain stopped. Let's check how you understand the meaning of the sentences. Choose the sentence which is closer in meaning to the original. 1. I had already seen that film, but I decided to watch it again last night. What does it mean? I watched the film last night for the first time? Or last night wasn't the first time that I had seen the film? What do you think? Yes, that's right. Last night wasn't the first time that I had seen the film. How do we know that? We have the past perfect action, I had already seen, which implies that something happened further in the past before I decided to watch it again. 2. The boys were playing football while it was raining. The boys were playing football until it started to rain, or the boys played football in the rain. That's right, the boys played football in the rain. How do we know that? We have two past continuous action, were playing and it was raining, and we have while, which implies that they were happening at the same time. So, the boys played football in the rain. 3. I was writing an email when our computer broke down. What does it mean? Our computer broke down before I wrote an email, or I had started writing an email and then our computer broke down. That's right, I had started writing an email and then our computer broke down. How do we know that? We have past continuous action, I was writing, and the past simple action, which interrupted the writing. 4. My aunt bought me a lovely gift after she had spent the summer holiday with us. When the summer holiday was over, my aunt bought me a lovely gift. Or, while my aunt was spending the summer holiday with us, she bought me a lovely gift. What do you think? That's right. When the summer holiday was over, my aunt bought me a lovely gift. How do we know that? We have the past perfect. She had spent the summer holiday, and that means that it is the action in the further past before past simple action, before she bought me a lovely gift. And the last exercise for you for today. Liam is telling the story of how he forgot his passport. Put the verbs into the correct form: simple, continuous, or perfect past. I'll give you some time to go through the story. Now let's check your answers. It happened last August at the airport. Last August, znamo kada se nešto dogodilo, zato je past simple. A few weeks before, a group of us had decided to go to Greece together for a holiday. Had decided, past perfect, zato što je naglašeno da su oni odlučili da idu na odmor a few weeks before. We were waiting in the queue at passport control when suddenly I realized that I had forgotten my passport. We were waiting, imamo past continuous, ovdje je akcenat na trajanju radnje, stajali smo u redu, čekali u redu. Suddenly, znači imamo sada past simple radnju, I realized, radnja koja je na neki način prekinula ovu trajnu radnju. And I realized what? That I had forgotten my passport. Shvatio sam da sam zaboravio, ovdje je past perfect, jer sam pre toga zaboravio pasoš. It was quite a shock. I rang my parents. They found my passport and immediately drove to the airport with it. Ovdje imamo prosto nabrajanje radnji koje su se dogodile jedna za drugom. Rang, found, drove. Ok, zato je simple past. We had no time to talk, but I had said goodbye to them earlier that morning. Had mora da bude u past simple tense-u, zato što je ovdje glagol have u značenju imati, a u značenju imati je non-continuous verb. I had said past perfect, zato što su se oni već pozdravili, naglašeno je earlier that morning. I ran all the way to the plane, znači imamo completed action. I was just in time. When I got there, the passengers were sitting in their seats ready for take-off. When I got there, posle when imamo past simple, završena radnja. The passengers were sitting. E sad ovdje je past continuous tense, kada sam tamo stigao, zatekao sam putnike kako sede, tako, on je video kako oni već sede. Međutim, ja bih ovdje priznala i past perfect, had set, postoji i ta varijanta, opet u zavisnosti od tumačenja čitaoca, ukoliko je akcenat na tome da kada sam stigao da su oni već seli na svoje mesta. U tom slučaju bismo koristili past perfect. Let's have a quick review. Danas smo razgovarali o opisivanju događaja u prošlosti uz pomoć 3 vremena. Past simple, past continuous i past perfect tense. Osnovno vreme koje nam služi za pripovedanje jeste past simple tense. I za to vreme kažemo da je completed action, završena radnja u prošlosti. Da ne bude zabune, i radnje koje izražavamo past continuous, odnosno prošlim trajnim vremenom, i past perfectom, pluskvamperfektom, također su završene radnje. S tim što kod prošlog trajnog vremena akcenat je na trajanju radnje, a kod past perfect tensa akcenat je na tome da se radnja dogodila pre neke druge radnje u prošlosti. This is your homework. Write a short story about something interesting that happened to you. About 10 to 15 sentences. Thank you for your attention today. Stay healthy and goodbye.